I called off my wedding with a single sentence, and within 12 hours her father was banging on my hotel room door at 6 in the morning. My name is Jordan. I'm 32, and I built my software company from nothing, no family money, no investors in the early days, just me in a 400 square foot apartment eating instant noodles and coding until my eyes burned. 3 years into the business, I met Madison at a networking event. We dated for 3 years, got engaged 8 months ago, and the wedding was supposed to happen in 4 months. I'm not someone who acts on impulse. Every major decision in my life gets researched, analyzed, planned from every possible angle, which is exactly why I listened when my friend Billy's dad, Mr. Qley, sat me down 6 months before the wedding. Mr. Qley is a divorce lawyer who's seen every nightmare scenario you can imagine, and he told me point blank that I needed a prenup, not because Madison was a bad person, but because I had employees depending on my company, contracts worth millions, intellectual property that took years to develop. The prenup I had drafted was simple and fair. Everything I built before the marriage stays mine. Everything we build together gets split 50-50, and I genuinely thought it was the most reasonable document in the world. I brought it up the first time over dinner at Madison's favorite Italian restaurant, kept my tone casual, explained it was just smart planning for both of us, and she smiled, nodded, said she'd look it over. For 2 weeks, she didn't mention it once, didn't ask questions, didn't seem bothered, and I actually felt relieved like we'd cleared a potential obstacle without any drama. Then the venue deadline hit, $15,000 for the final deposit, non-refundable, due in 72 hours, and I realized we needed to finalize the prenup before I committed that kind of money. I brought it up on a Tuesday night at my place. She was sitting on my couch scrolling through wedding Pinterest boards, and the moment I said we should sign the prenup before the venue payment, her entire energy shifted. Her smile vanished. Her shoulders went rigid. She closed her laptop with this slow, deliberate motion, and I knew immediately that something had changed in the 2 weeks since our first conversation. She looked at me and said, "This is an insult," and her voice had an edge I'd genuinely never heard before, sharp and cold. And she kept going, said I didn't trust her, said her parents had been married 30 years without any prenup, said if I really loved her, I wouldn't need a legal document between us. I stayed calm, tried to explain again that it wasn't about trust. It was about protecting the business and the people who work for me, about being responsible with something I'd built before we even met, but she wasn't listening to logic anymore. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "It's either me or that paper, you choose." And something clicked in my brain like a lock tumbling into place. In that exact moment, I understood that she didn't see my company as something I'd created. She saw it as ours already, saw herself entitled to half of everything I'd sacrificed for, every 18-hour day, every missed vacation, every risk I'd taken. The romantic illusion just evaporated like steam, and I looked at her sitting there with her arms crossed, waiting for me to crumble and apologize and choose love over logic, and I felt this cold clarity settle over me. I didn't argue, didn't try to negotiate. I just said very quietly, "I understand," and watched her face transform. She actually smiled, relaxed back into the couch, thought she'd successfully pressured me into tearing up the prenup and proving my love, and she went right back to her Pinterest boards talking about flower arrangements like the conversation had never happened. I nodded at appropriate moments, made agreeable sounds when she showed me centerpiece options, and the moment she left around 10 p.m., I walked into my home office and started making calls. I canceled the venue first, lost the $5,000 deposit we'd already paid, but saved the remaining $10,000. Then I systematically went through my wedding vendor spreadsheet and canceled everything. The caterer, the photographer, the band, the florist, the cake designer, every single contract on the list. Some vendors were confused, asked if we wanted to reschedule for a different date, and I just said no. The wedding isn't happening. Keep whatever deposits we've paid. And by 2 in the morning, my checklist was complete. I wrote a brief public post on social media, kept it neutral and professional, said Madison and I had mutually decided to call off the wedding, thanked everyone for their support and understanding, posted it, turned off my phone completely, and packed a bag. I checked into an extended stay hotel downtown, one of those corporate places with a kitchenette and decent Wi-Fi, and I slept better than I had in months. No anxiety dreams about seating charts or cake flavors, just solid black sleep. When I powered my phone back on at 6 the next morning, I had 47 missed calls, 38 text messages, and my voicemail was completely maxed out. Most were from Madison, and I could see from the preview texts how her tone progressed from confused to angry to panicked over the course of the night. Some were from her mom, Frances, with increasingly frantic messages. a few from mutual friends asking what the hell happened. I didn't respond to any of them, just left my phone on the hotel desk and went to make coffee. That's when someone started pounding on my door, not knocking, pounding, aggressive heavy hits that made the door frame rattle in its hinges. I looked through the peephole and saw a middle-aged man in an expensive tailored suit, red-faced, jaw clenched, radiating fury. I didn't recognize him from the angle, but I had a pretty good guess who he was. So instead of opening the door, I called down to the front desk. The woman who answered sounded genuinely nervous when she said, "Yes, sir. There's a man named Bruce here in the lobby. He says he's your fiancé's father, and he's demanding to see you. Should I send security?" And I told her no, I'd come down myself. I took my time getting dressed, finished my coffee, grabbed my laptop bag, and headed down to the lobby knowing this conversation was going to set the tone for everything that came next. Bruce threatened to destroy everything I'd built in a hotel lobby at 6:30 in the morning. And that's when I realized I wasn't dealing with a concerned father. I was dealing with someone who'd spent his entire life getting exactly what he wanted through intimidation. He was waiting by the elevators when I stepped out, arms crossed, feet planted wide like he owned the building. And the moment he saw me, he started walking toward me with the kind of aggressive, purposeful stride that's designed to make you back up. The front desk staff were watching nervously. I noticed a security guard had positioned himself near the main entrance, and I kept my face completely neutral as Bruce got close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne. He didn't yell, which actually surprised me. Instead, he spoke in this low, controlled voice that was somehow more threatening than shouting. Told me I had humiliated his daughter, embarrassed his entire family, made them look like fools in front of everyone they knew, and he expected me to fix this situation immediately. I let him talk, didn't interrupt, just stood there with my hands in my pockets and my expression blank, waiting for him to run out of steam. When he finally paused, I said very calmly that the relationship was over and there was nothing to discuss, and that's when his whole approach shifted. His face relaxed into this fake friendly smile. His tone went from aggressive to reasonable, and he started talking about how young people make mistakes under stress, how wedding planning brings out the worst in everyone, how if I just came to dinner at their house we could talk this through like adults and find a compromise that worked for everyone. He said Madison was heartbroken, said she'd overreacted about the prenup and regretted it, said we could work something out that protected my business while still showing trust in our relationship, and the whole time he was talking I was reading the subtext. This wasn't about reconciliation. This was about control, about getting me back into their orbit where they could manage the narrative and apply pressure until I signed away my protection. I told him no, the decision was final, and I watched the mask slip completely off his face. He leaned in close enough that I had to resist the urge to step back, and said, "You don't want to make an enemy out of me." And his voice had gone ice cold, and I understood right then that this was a promise, not a threat, a preview of exactly what was coming if I didn't fall in line. I didn't flinch, didn't respond, just held his stare for 3 long seconds, then turned around and walked back to the elevator while he stood there in the middle of the lobby. Over the next 2 weeks, Madison launched what I can only describe as a reputation assassination campaign, and I only heard about it through mutual friends because I'd blocked her number, her social media, every possible contact point. She was telling people I'd had some kind of breakdown, that I'd become paranoid and unstable, that the stress of running the company had made me erratic, and she was genuinely worried about my mental health. She positioned herself as the caring, devoted fiancée who'd tried everything to help her struggling partner, but had been pushed away. And the scary thing was that some people believed it because I wasn't defending myself or offering my side of the story. I made a conscious, deliberate choice to stay completely silent, didn't post anything on social media, didn't call friends to explain, didn't try to control the narrative, just let her talk while I focused on practical legal steps. I had Mr. Cole draft a formal eviction notice giving Madison 30 days to remove her belongings from my apartment. It was legally